Hello, welcome back to my fave fanfics. Here, I post, well, my favorite fanfictions, if that wasn't obvious. I do hope you'll enjoy them as much as I do. Please like and subscribe for more content. Without further ado, let's get started.
Welcome, my dear faves, to the 9th part of What If My Hero Academia Reacts to Hunter x Hunter. Credit goes to Makifinity. Chapter 10. Beware HxH prisoners. I give. Tonpa yelled out, his hands high in the air before he bowed to the floor moments before Bendot reached him. Huh? Kahlua said, eyes shrouded small, expression frozen. What? Leorio asked quietly, looking equally dumbfounded. A few of the students snorted at the flabbergasted expressions. They already knew Tonpa was a loser. Guess they underestimated, Jiru spoke, rolling her eyes half-heartedly. It switched to Leorio fisting Tonpa's shirt, yanking him before as he hissed out, "You bastard." The other three looked at him with slight shock, Gon and Kurapika stepping back. "You just confirmed all my suspicions," Leorio shouted, preparing to punch. "You're just a piece of trash out to sabotage others," Leorio accused him with an angry expression. "You're correct," Tonpa confirmed, looking satisfied. "That's what I do every year," the rookie crusher said, Gon and Kahlua watching him intently. "And I plan to continue to do so." "He certainly has the motivation to do this for over 30 years, All Might said hesitantly. Bakugo scoffed loudly. "More like the old man's a bitter petty piece of she. You know, he's been keeping up pretty well so far. It's kinda weird how we haven't really seen him struggle yet somehow he's managed to fail for so long," Suyu mentioned curiously. A few of the students shrugged, looking at each other cluelessly. Todoroki squinted suspiciously at the screen. Could Tonpa be a secret examiner? The dual-quirked boy theorized. He filed it away for later. He looked at Leorio with a wide nasty expression. "I'm not taking the hunter exam to pass it," Tonpa admitted. Trumpets played in the background as the title flashed, Beware HxH prisoners. The room was quiet, as the hero students remembered the disadvantage the group was starting with due to Tonpa. Trick Tower was shown once more on the outside, resting on top of a narrow cylinder-like cliff high in the air. The third phase of the exam is being held at Trick Tower. It's also a prison for long-term convicts. A flame quietly burned, the 4 torches placed on the edges of the platform burning brightly. Gon and his friends have chosen to partake in a 5-on-5 battle with some of the prisoners. Gon and Sedakan stood across from each other, both deathly still. Kaminari shuddered slightly. "Still can't believe they're really going up against prisoners. I just hope the next guy doesn't want a death match too." Hagakure exclaimed, waving her arms around wildly. Due to Tonpa's actions, they've already suffered one loss. Kahlua, Leorio, and Kurapika stood, watching Gon and Sedakan, Tonpa leaning on the back wall with his arms crossed feigning disinterest. The prisoners on the other side remained motionless and cloaked, Bendot watching with a half-smirk. The next round will pit Gon against Sedakan. Gon watched the prisoner with wide eyes, analyzing him. What will happen in the upcoming battle? Quote, "Gon's so young, he's a literal child," Iida uttered, blinking as he realized. Why would they let a child fight a grown prisoner? Exclamation mark. He shouted, voice cracking slightly, chopping the air with his hands. Aizawa sighed. "You and me both, Kid, the tired hero thought. Sedakan stood with his arms resting at his sides, half of his face semi-obscured, his eye lazily watching Gon. Now then, he began, before pointing a hand at himself, gesturing. The description flashed, Sedakan 149YEAR sentence, serial bombings. As you can see, I'm not very strong, he gently stated. I don't really enjoy fistfights, or other physical activities such as running and jumping, Sedakan revealed to Gon. I'm into those kinds of things myself. But I'm not too good at using my head, Gon admitted to him. Endeavor TSKED disapprovingly. Foolish thing to do. Admitting weaknesses to your opponent who clearly was fishing for it. Gran Torino grunted slightly before speaking up. Well, Gon is an honest boy. Perhaps he'll surprise him like he did Netero. A few of the students couldn't help but look incredulously at the sentence charge of Sedakan. I thought so. So I came up with a simple game we could both play, Sedakan offered, holding up a finger. A game? Gon repeated curiously. Yes. One that doesn't rely on either mental or physical activity, Sedakan replied to him. What kind of game? Gon asked. Sedakan laughed softly, as he reached behind his back, shuffling a bit. He held up 2 white candles. We each light a candle at the same time. The one whose candle goes out first is the loser, he said, his eye blown wide open with a faint smile. What do you think? He asked, tilting his head. How reassuring that a guy convicted of bombings is led around any things that can catch on fire, Midnight said sarcastically. Do you think he can put a bomb inside of the candle? Exclamation mark. Mineta squeaked fearfully. Aizawa shook his head. Don't be irrational. I doubt they'd have enough material lying around for him to build a bomb in there. However, it doesn't mean he might not have any nasty tricks up his sleeve, Aizawa thought, leaving it unsaid. Yeah. Gon accepted, nodding his head. The young boy stuck out his thumb with a smile. That's easy to understand. Let's go with that. Okay. In that case, Sedakan began, before holding out the candles even more, his smile stretching a far bit too wide. The candle in his right hand was short, the other long. Gon looked up, making a noise. Kurapika gasped a little, as Leorio and Kahlua noticed as well. Tonpa looked with wide eyes, before smirking. A few of the students let out confused murmurs, swiveling their heads to look at one another. Sir Night Eye's eyes, flickered between the 2 candles before realizing and sighing tiredly. Decide which candle you want to use, Sedakan continued. Press O for the long one. Or X for the short one. This will be determined by majority rule, he explained. Gon looked at him with slight surprise, the other 3 standing a few feet behind him on the separate side watching. We have to choose one? Leorio said. His shoulders tensed, fists balling up. This is a trap. The candle is Sedakan's left hand was shown. Normally, you'd choose the long one, so he must have tampered with the long one. Leorio said aloud. But basically everyone knows that, so what if it's the other way around, Mina argued at the screen. And so it begins, Todoroki ominously said. That would be the safe assumption. But it might be a trick, and he actually tampered with the short one, Kurapika reasoned. When you put it like that, Leorio trailed off. Yes, there is no end, Kurapika finished. Both of their gazes were focused ahead intently. You've got a real dilemma there, Tonpa called out behind them, from where he was leaning, a smile on his face. You keep your mouth shut. Leorio snapped, looking to the side. Yeah, Tonpa said, closing his eyes, proud of himself. It turns into a stupid paradox, the same dumb shit from Princess Bride, Bakugo groaned, leaning his chin to rest on his hand, annoyed. Midoriya frowned at Bakugo's statement, feeling as if he was missing something. When someone is presented with an obviously biased choice, Kurapika began. The scene switched to a fake card game between Mini Kurapika and Mini Leorio, a light shining down. Suspicion mounts and the decision-making process seizes up, the blonde continued. Mini Leorio reached over to grab one of Mini Kurapika's cards. A pair of 2 of clubs, 8 of clubs, 6 of aces and 3 of hearts, were set in the pile as the game progressed. What's worse, the psychological impact of making the wrong choice. It certainly brings anxiety that either breaks or makes the players involved, Nedzu chimed in cheerfully. Paranoia and stress alone can make some players quit in a rage, Aizawa mumbled to himself, frowning. Mini Leorio grumbled, as he held one card in his hand, eyebrows comically furrowed. Mini Kurapika held the ace of spades in his right hand, in his left was the joker card. The mini blonde glanced over at Leorio and held out the ace of spades to an unknowing Leorio, smiling victoriously. Is much greater than if the problem had offered up 2 fair options. Mini Leorio looked intently between the 2 cards. The offered ace of spades and the joker card held back. He reached for the card in Mini Kurapika's left hand, a buzzer sounding loudly as it revealed the joker card. It's impossible to know whether you're being played or not, Iida said hotly, figuring to the screen. Chances are low but not zero, all for one thought absent-mindedly in the back. Would it be the wrong time to comment on how cute they look? Ochako thought, melting a little. A sullen look appeared on Mini Leorio's face as he realized he was beat, slumping over as Mini Kurapika appeared with his arms crossed. A satisfied cat-like smile with an eye slitted open to watch Leorio mope. The scene switched back to the 2 candles on the ground as Sedakan sighed, his hand coming down on the ground beside them. Discuss it, take your time, the prisoner said, sitting down. This may be a majority decision, but you're free to kick it around, he offered to them. We have plenty of time, his words rang out, as the prisoners on the other side watched. Gon let out. He turned around. Do you think he's messing with them to take up time? Say they spend forever trying to pick a candle only after to still wait for the candle to burn out, Momo explained. An excellent theory, Nedzu lightly praised. I hate mind games, Toga said, her face twitching in annoyance. Hey, which one should I choose? He called out to the rest of the group. Damn it, Leorio cursed. Which one? Kahlua blinked as he watched Sedakan closely. Sedakan with a wide knowing grin chuckled softly. The 2 candles beside him were shown once more. Kurapika closed his eyes, looking as if he were struggling. Gon, you decide. Kurapika shouted out. Leorio turned to look at the Kurta. We'll abide by your decision. Choose the one you think is the best, Kurapika said to him. Really, Dabi snorted skeptically, raising a brow. There's really no point in them going back and forth over it. It just boils down to luck, Najire murmured to herself. Maybe Gon's super senses will come to the rescue. Ochako said hopefully. Are you sure about this? He never thinks anything through, Kahlua asked him. Instead of wasting time fretting over what to do, let's rely on Gon's instincts, Kurapika told him. Instincts, huh? Kahlua thought aloud. I get to choose? Okay. Gon agreed, turning back around. Then I choose the long one. Quote. You want the long candle? Sedakan smiled. Because the long candle will burn the longest. It's a no-brainer. Gon said enthusiastically with a bright smile. The group all looked with various expressions of shock, Tonpa even coming forth to stare incredulously. Several of the hero students and teachers' sweat dropped, even earning ridiculous looks from the villains. Keepin' it simple and sweet, huh, Present Mike weakly joked. No fucking brains indeed, Bakugo said, disappointed, but not surprised. He can say that again, Leorio muttered weakly, arms bizarrely stuck outward as his face drooped with astonishment. I knew he wouldn't think this through, Kahlua said, arms above his head, looking upwards. Well, that's that, Kurapika strained out, after snapping out of the deer in headlights look. He pressed the O button on the wrist timer. It's not like we can figure out which one's the trap, Leorio said, scratching his head. He pressed the button as well. Isn't this as much of a risk for him, as it is for them too? Juru voiced. Ojiro blinked. Technically, there's no way to rationalize which candle could be the supposed trap. It was always going to be a lucky guess. That means that Sedakan would only have a 50-50 chance as well that they pick the one that he didn't set up, Juru explained. I agree, it does make it seem useless for him to have set up a trap, Tokiyami agreed. Did he, or didn't he create a trap? The majority of the students pondered. Kahlua pressed his timer without another word. Tonpa cast a look over his shoulder at the others before smirking, pressing his wrist timer. The count immediately displayed 5-0 with O and X respectively. Okay. You get the long one, Sedakan grunted while standing up. I'll take the short one, he said, throwing the long candle to Gon. The young boy caught the candle with both hands, a small smile on his face. Two of the torches on the right side of the platform lowered, as Sedakan and Gon walked to them. With a rusty creak, the torches stopped, lowered to Sedakan's mid-chest. Now, let's light our candles together, the prisoner said, looking at Gon. If he didn't, then why does he still look so damn smug, Shinso mumbled, slightly glaring at the screen. I've been trying my hardest not to judge others, but it's so hard to believe that a prisoner like him wouldn't take the opportunity to set up a nasty trick, Iida thought, his brows furrowing. Gon walked up to the other torch, before turning to look at Sedakan. The man turned back to the lit fire and stuck the top of the candle in for a few seconds. Gon watched, before reaching up to do the same with his candle. They pulled back their candles, each of them now lit. Lippo made a small noise of amusement, face pulled into a nasty-looking smirk as he snacked on a potato chip. He watched through the screen of the monitor as Gon and Sedakan walked away from the torches, returning to where they were standing. Well, that's reassuring, Tamaki said under his breath, feeling tension rise in his shoulders. Something's definitely up. It has to be a trap. Zero exclaimed. Crunching could be heard as the examiner sat before the multiple ongoing screens, the main one recording Gon and Sedakan. Lippo chuckled to himself, eyes narrowed as he continued to observe. Gon and Sedakan stood a few feet from one another, staring the other down as their candles burned quietly. The timer on Killua's wrist displayed 68 hours and 55 minutes. Normally, how long would it take that candle to burn down? Kahlua asked. Ah man, I knew it. He's going to make them take forever on just this part, Mina groaned exaggeratedly. Many of the students felt their spirits sink. Although Gon might win the match, it would cost them hours. Probably 5 to 6 hours? Kurapika guessed. A loud gust of air made itself known from the pitch-black depths surrounding the platform, bringing up debris and dirt. The torches on the ends of the platform wavered and flickered. Gon's candle flickered dangerously, and his hand came up, shielding it. "Whoa, that was really close," Gon said to himself, watching his candle closely. Sedakan shielded his candle with a hand, keeping his eyes on Gon, his hair moving gently. Eri gasped at the candle flickering, holding her small hands together as she nervously watched the screen. "Where'd all this wind come from?" Exclamation mark. Sato asked in an absurd tone. He only gained a giggle from Aoyama as a response. The wind whistled, as it gently billowed the clothes of the three standing on the other side. "A strong draft is coming up from below," Leorio noticed, looking down. "That means they have to stay still and not get distracted, huh?" Leorio said, looking back up at them on the platform. Kahlua, Leorio and Kurapika looked back up at Gon and Sedakan on the platform as the wind continued to whistle. The prisoners on the other side kept a close eye. Gon constantly switched from watching his candle to looking up at Sedakan. "Do you think he'll try and blow Gon's candle out?" Kirishima said. Midoriya shook his head. "Any sudden movements with that strong of a wind will blow his candle out as well. I just don't know what he has planned." Sedakan laughed before speaking up. "If you don't pay attention, your candle will go out," he said to Gon. "That's because you're planning something bad," Gon responded genuinely. "Otherwise, your candle would go out first," Gon continued, with a slight frown. "I won't do anything," Sedoka told him, laughing a bit to himself again. "After all, I already have." In an instant, Gon's flame grew twice its size, shocking the boy. Several of the students cried out in shock. "What? I coulda swore he was just messing with him." "How?" Kaminari said, baffled. Compress chuckled to himself in the back. "A Cheshire grin makes a great poker face," he chimed. The gentle flame nearly doubled its size again, growing out of proportion to the size of the candle wax, as Gon shouted in alarm, holding it away from him. Sedakan smiled and slyly said, "See?" Quote, "Hey! Look at Gon's candle. The flame's gotten stronger all of a sudden." Leorio said, his expression serious. "He must have spiked it with an accelerant to make the candle burn faster." Kurapika realized. How? How did he know they were going to choose the long candle? Iida said, grasping at straws for an answer. He didn't have to know. Just as long as he was ready for whatever they chose, it didn't matter, Izuku said, realizing what Sedakan had done. "Ready?" Kirishima echoed after him, confused as well. Globs of melted wax dropped to the floor steadily, as Gon juggled the candle between his hands, mumbling to himself, "H-hot. H-hot." Quote. At this rate, his candle will only last another 2 or 3 minutes. Kahlua stated. "Damn it." Leorio cursed. The man cupped his hands over his mouth, yelling out across to them. "Hey! That was dirty. I knew you tampered with the long candle." Quote. After Kachan mentioned Princess Bride, the answer was there all along, Midoriya said, shying away a bit at Bakugo's questioning glare. Ahem, anyways, in the final showdown between Wesley and Vizzini. Both of the cups were poisoned, it didn't matter which one was picked. In this case, I believe Sedakan tampered with both of the candles, Midoriya explained. Then how come his isn't catching on fire? Mina questioned. He came with backups, Ribbit, Suyu said simply. Sedakan's grin stretched out as a dark shadow cast over his face. You're wrong, the prisoner thought to himself. Behind his back, there was a noticeable lump in his shirt. I prepared 4 candles. The contrasting choices you faced was just my way of hiding the real trap, the thought. His shirt obscuring the 2 other long and short candles he hid. Totally not cool or manly at all. Kirishima grumbled. The guy has a sentence for over 100 years. I think chivalry is dead at this stage, Magna snorted. A cheap and clever trick. A rookie mistake is often believing that the 2 options presented to you are the only options you have, All Might said. The moment you let your opponent make the rules, is the moment you lose, Aizawa warned the class. Gon's face was panicked, wax dripping like water, as he watched his long candle turn into nothing but a short nub. You assumed only 1 candle had been tampered with. The choices were so uneven, you didn't consider the possibility that both had been spiked. Sedakan thought. While watching Gon with amusement. A flashback occurred, showing when Sedakan sat down, his hand reaching back to shove the untampered long candle behind his shirt. It didn't matter which candle you picked. He then proceeded to toss the tampered long candle over to Gon, who caught it with ease. Yeesh. Knew there was something definitely up. Makes me feel like a first year all over again, Mirio said sheepishly, rubbing the back of his neck. Their candle is burning out. And fast, Tamaki trailed off, nervously watching the screen. What type of accelerant did they let this guy get his hands on? Snipe said, mildly shocked at how the candle was near its end not even 2 minutes past. The flashback ended. Either way, I would have handed you an oil-soaked candle of either length. Sedakan grinned to himself, his eyes pinned on Gon, waiting for the candle to burn out. Gon held the fast-burning candle between his index finger and thumb, staring down at it. If he doesn't do something, anything, that candle's going to be out before he can even blink again. Ojiro proclaimed, edging out of his seat. Slight panic arose from the midst of the students as they murmured. After a moment, a small smile came on his face before it broke out into a full-blown grin. Sedakan's own smile disappeared, confused by Gon's sudden mood change. Since the flames burning so fiercely, Gon started, looking over at Sedakan. The young boy bent down with a hand on his hip, smiling as he placed the short candle on the floor. A little draft won't extinguish it, right? In an instant, he sprung forward, the strong burning flame not so much as flickering at the gust of wind. Nedzu smiled slightly in approval. It was whoever burned out first, Bakugo said. A menacing smile stretched out on his face. Sedakan's eyes widened, as Gon raced in front of him in the matter of seconds. So fast. He blurted out, bewildered. With a quick inhale, Gon blew out Sedakan's candle, leaving nothing but smoke. The man yelped, looking at his candle in shock. Gon turned around to look back at his candle that was on the floor, still burning brightly. He smiled toothily, turning back to Sedakan to flash a peace sign. I win. Quote. Yeah. Majority of the students cried out, at the first win for the group. He may not look like it, but he's not just quick on his feet, he's quick thinking too, Recovery Girl said. Shigaraki's face twitched in irritation before scowling, hoping that the kid who looked so similar to the All Might wannabe would end up losing, disappointing his team. The man's face scrunched, realizing his defeat. All right. Leorio smiled. Next to him, Kahlua sporting the same look. Kurapika watched with a gentle and proud look on his face, Tonpa behind him wide-eyed. The two standing cloaked prisoners revealed nothing, while Bendot's eyes widened slightly, shocked at the win. "Oh, he's got a real spring in his step," Lippo said, watching Gon smile in peace sign Sedicon. The examiner had an arm around a bag full of chips as he munched while watching the screen. "I knew he could do it." "Gon never gives up," Kirishima said, proud of the younger boy. "What a strong and bright spirit," All Might said, smiling warmly. "And the ability to take advantage of a bad situation. This boy's impressive," Lippo praised. The bridge extended out from the platform, connecting back to the applicant's side. "Yay! I won!" Gon cheered as he walked back. "Good job, Gon!" Leorio cheered, holding up his hands in fists. "Now we have a win." Quote, "Once Kurapika and I win, we can advance," Leorio said determinedly, stepping back, pointing to Kurapika. Sedicon walked back silently to the prisoner's side. "You fool. That's what happens when you rely on tools and cheap tricks," one of the prisoners spoke. He could barely even blink when Gon got to him. Zero laughed slightly, at Sedicon's stunned reaction. Compress soured a bit at the condescending tone of the cloaked prisoner. "Tisk," Sedicon could only say, as he plopped down to sit back on a wall. "If you want to fool someone, you have to make a sacrifice," the prisoner continued to say, completely cloaked, blue forearms locked in place in front of them. "Just watch." The handcuffs clicked and fell into pieces on the ground with heavy thuds. They walked forward with calculated steps. "All right. I'll go next," Kurapika said, standing in front. The blonde treaded forward to cross the bridge. "Who the hell is this guy?" Bakugo muttered. "Kurapika's going against him," Jiru exclaimed. "I've been wondering how the kid fights," Gran Torino said, remembering back to when Leorio and Kurapika faced off briefly on the ship. Kurapika and the prisoner crossed their respective bridges simultaneously, reaching to the platform at the same time. The bridges withdrew, isolating the two there. Kurapika stared straight ahead into the cloaked face of the prisoner. Their hand reached up and cast off the robe, earning a surprised look from Leorio, Tonpa leaning in to get a better look. Large blue feet, the ends of their pants worn and tiered, hard six-pack abs, a broad muscled chest and enormous biceps. "Whoa, someone odd." Magna raised an eyebrow, looking clearly unimpressed. "This one looks like it might be a tough one," All Might said in slight concern. The prisoner roared out, revealing a muscled man with hearts on his left pec, missing several teeth. One eye was blown wide, the other purpled and lazy, the cavity where his nose should have been left open on his face, fists clenched tightly. Spinner choked on his spit, eyes wide, as Dobby openly laughed behind him. Aizawa blinked profusely, trying to process the scene before him. "Interesting," All for One simply commented. Tilde. The blue prisoner cackled nastily, chest heaving. "I'm next," he cried out, continuing to laugh victoriously. The description flashed, Magitani 108YEAR sentence, multiple crimes, including fraud and blackmail. "That's one freaky body," Leorio said, eyes blown in awe. "And face," Kahlua commented from next to him, watching passively. Kurapika watched the prisoner intently with slight determination and caution. Not to judge, but for all his, Kaminari coughed, trying to find a way to place his words. Looks? Yeah, it's creepy, no offense, Shinso added for him. Kaminari nodded his head, continuing. For him to be put away for fraud and blackmail, I thought it'd be something more, worse. Idiot probably got his ass handed to him before he went to prison by whoever he scammed, Bakugo scoffed lightly. Look at this. Majitani said, pointing to his left pec with a finger, where the hearts were. I've killed 19 people, but it bugged me that 19 is such an uneven number, he continued. Majitani's face appeared much closer, his right ear mangled and jagged, his left ear replaced with a cone, 2 wires attached at the bottom. 2 identical scars ran across his face, large gaudy snake bites under his lip. I'm so glad I get to meet number 20, he said to Kurapika before breaking out into another round of bellowing laughter. Kurapika simply observed him. Now we have a serial killer? Leorio said quietly, both his and Gon's attention focused on the two. Vlad King's face twisted slightly. I find that hard to believe, the blood hero said. Lier. Seriously, what type of lame would even get tattoos symbolizing people they've killed? Even the heroes aren't that sappy, Toga fake gagged. Twice nodded in frantic agreement. I won't be satisfied unless we put our lives on the line. I won't accept some half-assed contest, Majitani continued. Blood. He said thirsty, his good eye widened dramatically. Guts. Agony. He proclaimed, before laughing again. How's that? You must be scared now. Majitani thought to himself, head thrown back, as he continued to laugh victoriously. Fine, Kurapika finally spoke. Huh? The prisoner stopped, looking at the blonde. Name the contest, I'll accept your choice, Kurapika told him. Oh, Majitani hesitated, clenching his fist tight. You've got guts, he said to the Kurta. Clearly wasn't expecting that. Aizawa muttered at Majitani's reaction. So what, his goal is to scare him into forfeiting the match. Mina deadpanned. I don't think anyone who willingly free falls down a cliff would lose a match by being scared, Todoroki said blankly, remembering the carefree attitude of the 4 as they jumped down Split Mountain. Majitani watched him smugly, scoffing to himself. I know you're shaking with fear. How long can you keep up the tough guy act? He thought. Then I propose a fight to the death, we go until one of us dies or admits defeat, Majitani said, his voice drawing out low in the end. However, don't expect me to stop when you surrender and beg for your life. He said, pointing boldly at Kurapika, cackling once again. Well? You're probably super scared now. Majitani thought eagerly. Fine. I accept, Kurapika's voice broke through, as the smirk on Majitani's face wiped off. Huh? Quote. Ojiro cringed slightly before sighing audibly. Perhaps if Tonpa could have another go that would work, Midnight snorted. Shigaraki glared hatefully at the man on screen. Idiots, unreliable, lazy, good-for-nothing idiots like him, dragged the rest of us down. The pale villain thought, his hand coming up to scratch at his neck feverishly, remembering his first attack on All Might at the USJ. Most of the so-called villains he had brought with them weren't able to take out the Ua brats at the least, who now had grown stronger and more annoying for him to deal with. Kurapika grabbed his blue overpiece, swiftly removing it and tossing it to the side. Shall we begin? Kurapika prompted, standing in his white tracksuit. Is he stupid? Didn't he hear what I said? Majitani thought, blinking in a stupefied manner. I said we're fighting to the death. I mean, doesn't my appearance scare him? Single quote. Kurapika's gray-toned eyes kept rapt focus on the prisoner in front of him. Hold on, Majitani called out from where he stood, holding up a hand. I forgot to mention something. No weapons will be allowed. We'll have a fistfight, plain and simple. After all, I may be hired as an examiner, but I'm still a prisoner. I'm not allowed to carry weapons, he explained. Kiro, Kurapika's for sure not falling for any of it. It doesn't look like he cares much, Suyu croaked at the unshaked expression on the blonde's face. Level-headed and patient. For all the rambling Majitani has done, he should be lucky that they didn't have someone more like Bendot on the other side, Compress mused. Without much fanfare, Bendot had simply lunged for Tonpa, eager to secure the win for their side. I see. I understand, Kurapika answered, reaching behind his back to cast aside his wooden nunchucks next to his garment. Is there anything else? Kurapika said, holding back a sigh. If not, I'd like to get started. Huh? Majitani grunted in slight surprise, stammering out a noise of agreement as he put his hand back down. That little bastard, he had a concealed weapon. That was close, Majitani thought, looking bewildered as a bead of sweat slid down his temple. But it appears that he doesn't rely on it. Is he that confident in his fighting ability? No, that doesn't seem to be the case. Majitani mulled over, watching Kurapika's laid-back but cautious form, standing tall. So he has some level of sense, Dabi commented. If he keeps dragging this, Kurapika will definitely suspect why he's taking so long to start the match, Izuku said, his eyes glued to the screen. Majitani scoffed again to himself, as Gon and the others stood on the platform behind Kurapika, watching the two aptly. Maybe he wants to run, but he can't in front of his friends. Or he's so stupid, he can't even process how scary I am. Yeah. That must be it. Majitani thought to himself, his confidence bolstering. The prisoner smirked slightly, his remaining teeth peeking out. Well, in that case, I have a couple cards up my sleeve for dealing with such fools. The prisoner then inhaled deeply, shoulders raised before doubling down and grunting with effort, puffing up the muscles on his abs, back and quads, Kurapika watching silently. Bakugo's teeth gritted together as a vein popped on his forehead. Blondie needs to kick this poser's ass already. Shinso's brows furrowed as his eyes landed on Bakugo's hair, looking away quickly. What is he doing? Iida asked aloud. He's doing the All Might thing, Magna grumbled under her breath, rolling her eyes. Hey, now. Is Kurapika gonna be okay? This guy looks dangerous, Leorio muttered nervously. Killua's expression was flat with boredom, as he placed his hands behind his head. In what way does he look dangerous? Killua thought. Majitani continued to puff up, fists clenched tightly with his back bulging. To me, this guy's all bark and no bite. He doesn't have the guts to hit anyone, let alone kill anyone, Killua thought, watching Majitani's face. The prisoner's eyes closed in concentration. He's as loud and as fake as all of these so-called heroes. He'd fit right in, Spinner growled lowly. The heroes tried to not to visibly react at the taunt. You don't need to worry, Gon spoke up. Huh? Killua looked over to the left. Why not? Leorio asked, looking down at his left where Gon stood with his arms crossed. Because when I look at him, I don't get the chills, Gon said simply. Leorio put his hands on his hips, leaning further down at his younger friend. What does that mean? Leorio asked. Kahlua watched Gon, his lips slightly curving into a smile before turning his attention forward again. The child seems to also be able to distinguish real threats from fake ones, just with his senses? How fascinating, Nedzu thought to himself, tittering and chuckling. Up to no good, several of the teachers thought instinctively at the sound. Kahlua clearly gets it, Kirishima said at the other boy's reaction. Sounds of muscles straining against their limits could be heard as Kurapika watched Majitani from where he stood. Time to show you my first secret weapon, Majitani thought, lifting his head to look at Kurapika before springing up into the air. I'm gonna give it to ya. He cried out, soaring through the air above Kurapika, whose stance widened defensively. Here he comes. Leorio shouted out in alarm, watching the prisoner. Secret weapon? Momo repeated, watching skeptically. Zero narrowed his eyes at the screen. Didn't this guy just say weapons aren't allowed? Talk about not playing by the rules you made, he said. What did I tell you, class? There's no such thing as a fair fight outside a school setting, Aizawa told them. Majitani clenched his fist mid-air and cocked it back, bearing down with a roar. Kurapika's feet leapt back at the last second, the large fist of the prisoner shattering the concrete he stood on only seconds ago. Kurapika was blown back from the intensity, his arms coming up to block his face and chest, pieces of rubble flying mid-air. The blonde landed gently on his feet, sliding back a few inches before dropping his arms. What type of secret weapon makes someone do that? Exclamation mark. Mineta said in slight disbelief. A time-based muscle quirk? No, they don't have quirks here, Midoriya remembered, mulling over his thoughts. Wow, Tonpa said, eyes wide as sweat marked his face. He made a hole in the floor with his bare fist. Leorio noted, shocked as well. Kahlua remained deadpan and uninterested, Gon watched with an unreadable expression. That was perfect, Majitani thought, still kneeling from his violent attack. And I still have one more secret weapon, the prisoner thought, a smug expression on his face. So he's seriously betting his cards on being able to intimidate Kurapika out of the match, Sir Night Eye said, pushing up his glasses. It adds a shock factor, and any weak-willed opponent would be sure to fall for it, Vlad King commented. Another trick? Ochako said. He raised his fist out of the hole from the ground, rubble crumbling. He turned around, staying aware of Kurapika who carefully watched him. Kurapika's eyes widened a fraction, a shocked gasp leaving his lips. On Majitani's sculpted back was a large tattoo of a spider on his right shoulder. It bore 12 legs, 6 on each side, its body designed as a blackened skull. A tattoo of a 12-legged spider, Leorio said shakily. Could it be? Quote. Confused murmuring came from the audience. That's a pretty sick tattoo, but not good news, Sato said. A gang tattoo? All Might wondered. Yeah, I recognize it, Tonpa behind them confirmed. His face grew haunted as he continued. Anyone aspiring to become a hunter has heard of them. A symbol flashed, of a 12-legged spider on a dark silvery web, the eyes of a skull glowing on the bottom part of its body. That's the symbol worn by members of that nefarious band of vicious thieves, the Phantom Troop. A quick outline of 13 people standing in a line showed quickly before dissipating. "They're the ones who killed Kurapika's clan," Iida slightly gasped. Dabi's brows shot up to his hairline as he sat up. "No way this coward isn't lying, but Blondie's reaction's gonna be gold," the flame villain thought, fighting back a smirk. "A well-known gang of criminals, and for one of them to be in prison? I call total bullshit," Bakugo said. "Really?" Gon asked, looking up at Leorio, whose expression was tense. "Yeah, there's no mistake. Everyone knows. I heard about them straight from Kurapika," Leorio said to him, his eyes unbelieving. Kurapika remained on one knee, his left hand slightly touching the ground while his right stayed on his knee, head bowed. The kurta remained quiet and deathly still. Majitani walked forward, clutching his fist that had struck the ground, looking fairly satisfied. "There's no way he's actually a member of this phantom troop. I just hope the kid doesn't get lost in his emotions," Present Mike sighed worryingly. "Between the steel implanted in my body that gives my arms the strength to shatter rock," Majitani thought, his right fist flashing as if under an X-ray, revealing the steel replacements. And the symbol of the phantom troop, the tattoo on his back, appeared again. The prisoner swiveled around, proud of himself. "After seeing both of those things, no one would want to fight me," he thought arrogantly, as Kurapika slowly rose from the ground. An idiot digging his own grave. "Those who've been crossed by the phantom troop and seeking revenge like Kurapika could give him serious damage," Compress commented. "He went through surgery just to seem like he's strong?" Mina said quizzically. Juru snorted at her tone before nodding. "Seems legit." Majitani laughed again, taunting slightly, "What's wrong?" Kurapika's hair brushed upon his eyes, concealing them as his head was still slightly bowed. "Cat got your tongue?" "I'm Majitani, one of the 4 devas of the Phantom Troop," he called out at Kurapika. "Consider that first strike my way of saying hello," the prisoner continued to taunt. "This is your last chance to surrender." "I'm still willing to," Majitani trailed off, catching a glimpse of Kurapika's face. "I'm going to need pain pills at this rate," Aizawa hissed under his breath, pinching the bridge of his nose as his head throbbed. Eri looked at him curiously, wondering why the man was getting such frequent headaches. Kurapika wouldn't actually try to kill him, would he? Ochako fretted, wringing her hands nervously. A bright red eye, with a ring of fuchsia swirling around a darkened red pupil, glared bright, wavering and glinting. "Huh?" Majitani could only say, confused. Kurapika stood statue still, his bright angry red eyes piercing into the prisoner. Shaky breaths could be heard, the kurta's eyes swirling with unfiltered rage. Majitani froze, fighting the urge to step back as he stuttered, "What's wrong with you?" Quote. "Oh," Nijire awed, taken away at the bright-colored eyes. "Don't do anything rash, young Kurapika," All Might could only think, remembering Kurapika's explanation of how the eyes only flashed red when emotions were heightened. "TCH, big deal. Holy CRAAAAPPP, where can I buy a pair?" Exclamation mark. Twice shouted out, before cringing slightly at his own words. The prisoner let out a confused noise, eyes bulging as Kurapika disappeared before his eyes. What?" he let out, before a hand clenched him by his jaw, squeezing, before heaving him up. Majitani flew off of his feet and into the air as Kurapika held him up. Frightened noises could be heard as he dangled in shock and fear, sweat beading on his face. Kurapika's other hand clenched into a fist. 13 let out a quick whistle. Didn't even catch him moving. They exclaimed. When you fuck around, you'll always find out, Magna shrugged, crossing her arms. Oh okay, Majitani struggled to let out. Wait. Lay off okay. He pleaded, his face twitching in Kurapika's grasp. Without much ceremony, Kurapika's fist came flying in, the sound of flesh being struck ringing out, as the Kurta punched him straight into the ground, pieces of his equipment chipping and breaking away. Kurapika's face was livid, teeth slightly gritted together. Majitani struck the ground with a heavy thud, reeling from the impact. Kurapika landed gracefully on his feet. Moments later, Majitani bouncing and rolling painfully on the concrete platform. Most of the hero students winced at the hit. Guess he's got a head start to chronic back pain, huh? Kaminari joked weakly. Clean, powerful hit. I wonder if he's received any previous formal training, Gran Torino stated. Tonpa's expression was shocked. Gon letting out a noise of astonishment, Leorio's teeth gritted in shock. Kahlua let out a low whistle of impressment. Majitani lay face first on the ground, unmoving, Kurapika a few feet away from him. Here's some advice, Kurapika began, voice cold and barely above a whisper. 1. A genuine Phantom Troop member tattoo has a member number inscribed inside, he hissed out, Majitani's tattoo on his back on full display. 2. They don't bother tallying the number of how many they've killed, the Kurta said shakily, barely holding back in his anger. Midoriya fumbled with his notebook for a moment, as he quickly scribbled in Kurapika's first statement. Underneath the page he started gathering information about the Phantom Troop. He's done his research, Recovery Girl said suspiciously. He's hunting them down for revenge. If what their name implies is true, I take it they're hard to find in the first place. He's been looking for all he can get and is looking for more by becoming a hunter, Ectoplasm spoke. 3. Never mention the Phantom Troop again, Kurapika said, expression dark. Or I will kill you, the blonde finished, turning his head to look down at where the prisoner lay, eyes still glowing. Leorio stood with his mouth agape at the promise, Kahlua sporting the same look. Tonpa stood back, frightened, and Gon with his mouth slightly open, eyes curious. On the prisoners' side, Sedakan watched from where he was seated, mouth gaping, seeming nigh hysterical, the cloaked prisoner next to him revealing nothing. Bendot looked on with disbelief, his eyes widened. Hardcore, Toga trailed off, wishing that Kurapika had done so. He seemed so uptight, who knew he could flip out, the villain thought, feeling oddly giddy about how out of character Kurapika had gotten. He who seeks revenge digs two graves, all for one reflected. Tonpa's eyes were the size of dinner plates as he commented, amazing. Leorio's expression mellowed out as he said to himself, Kurapika? Well, I saw that coming from a mile away, Kahlua stated. Gon's expression dropped into one of slight concern, his thoughts brewing. Yeah, he only said. The bridges extended out again as the match was over. Kurapika glanced back only once at Majitani's still form, before walking to grab his garment and nunchucks, headed back to their side. Are you okay, Kurapika? Leorio asked him worriedly. The blonde's steps were slow and steady. They're worried for him, Momo spoke softly. All that anger, it couldn't wait to spill out, although he knew the tattoo was fake, Tokiyami said. The teachers were dismayed at Kurapika's reaction, knowing it would eventually lead him nowhere good. "Yeah, I'm not hurt," Kurapika told him. "I mean, is it safe for us to be near you?" Leorio said to him, stepping back as he reached the platform they were standing on. Kurapika put a hand on his head, sighing slightly. "From the moment I saw him, I knew he was weak," he revealed with shaky breaths. Gon stepped closer, and Leorio leaned in with a comically suspicious look. "Mentally, I knew that that tattoo was fake. But as soon as I saw that spider, everything turned red," Kurapika confessed. He lost control in practically a flash. Recovery Girl sighed, rubbing her forehead. Midoriya intently watched the screen, with growing concern. "I hope they stop him, I hope they're not too late," the green-haired boy thought, remembering how he was almost too late for Iida, whose anger had consumed him. Leorio stood back up properly, a hand rubbing the side of his head. "Well, I can't really blame you," he trailed off sympathetically. "Actually, to tell the truth," Kurapika began, the others letting out a "hum?" Tonpa's expression grew fearful again, as he shrouded away a little further. "Even when I see a real spider, my personality changes, and I go into a frenzy," Kurapika admitted shamefully, his eyes slipping close. Gon and Leorio both had a frozen smile on their faces, eyes wide, Killua's face slipping into an unsteady look of disbelief, as if waiting for the punchline. Tonpa remained scared, heavily sweating. Not funny, but they traumatized him so much to the point real spiders trigger him too? Kaminari expressed. "They literally committed genocide against his people," Shinso reminded him. "Oh kid," Aizawa thought, shaking his head grimly. "You should tell us things like that sooner," Leorio said to him carefully, his face still frozen. Kurapika walked to the back of their section, leading into the hallway they came from. "But this means that the rage in me remains as strong as ever," he said, still taking shaky breaths. His back hit the wall and he slid down to sit, arms propped in front of him, his eyes barred from view as he gloomed. "I suppose I should be happy," Kurapika added, before falling into a silence. The four watched him, Tonpa clutching onto the side of the wall peering over, half frightened, half shocked. Gon leaned up to Leorio in a poor whisper. "We should keep Kurapika away from spiders." "Definitely," Leorio agreed with crossed arms and a stressed expression. Killua watched passively with his hands in his pockets. "He's happy for what?" Hagakure squeaked. "Hopefully his anger carries on and he can weaponize it when he eventually confronts them," Todoroki said bluntly, pursing his lips momentarily before falling blank. "Well, I'm not very fond of spiders either," Suyu said, providing comfort although the boy on screen couldn't hear her. "Damn you, Majitani. You're completely worthless." "Seems his face is scarred from a botched plastic surgery operation," Ben. Roused. The left side of Majitani's face appeared, his ear concealed by a plastic white device connected to multiple wires. "He's one hell of a fraud." "Hey, you understand this, right? After 2 losses, our backs are against a wall," Ben. Spoke to the cloaked prisoner next to him. "Let me handle it," a feminine voice said assuredly. "I have a plan," they said, a spark lighting up from the shadow of their cloak. "Let's hope their plan falls as flat as Satoken and Majitani's did," Midnight voiced. "They say the third time's the trick," Mon Amy, Aoyama chimed in. Mina lightly slapped the back of his head. "No jinxing." Quote. Explains that, can't imagine this guy's ever been in a real fight with an attitude like that. Present Mike exclaimed. They walked forward. A point of one glared above their heads as Lirio stepped forward, shouting out, "Okay. I'll secure our victory." The prisoner stepped into the light, face still hidden. Kurapika has defeated Majitani. Another win, and they will clear this trial. Lirio stood confidently looking over at the platform. This is still just one part of the tower, Ochako sighed. Less than 3 days to get to the bottom, Midoriya muttered. And they're gonna get there and pass, Kirishima said with full confidence in the group. Majitani's unconscious body lay there, the hole from his punch only a few feet away. How will Lirio handle the next challenge? Quote. Aizawa touched his temples slightly, sighing. The blonde reminded him of the still-so-fresh incident of one of his star students going after a powerful serial killer in the name of revenge. By the time he had learned his wrongs, his life had almost been taken by the serial killer, while he was miles away from being able to help. Therapy's been long overdue for that one, Present Mike said, reading Aizawa's thoughts. The black-haired hero sighed. Hopefully one of them gets to him before he does anything stupid, he trailed off. Besides Bendoc, the prisoners haven't been looking real promising, Snipe said, wondering if it was their luck Tonpa managed to get the hard opponent out of the way. Not everyone in prison's in for murder and the such, but I was really worried there, 13 sighed. It's a bit too early yet to say it's safe. They need to win this next match or it'll boil down to a toss-up with the final match, Sir Night-Eye said seriously. That kid, Kurapika's got some serious problems he's not handling well, Power Loader frowned. It's quite concerning how he wishes to hold onto his anger for the sole purpose of gaining revenge. Frightening yet sad, Nedzu said, a paw coming up to stroke his chin. Think that kid could actually kill someone, boss? Dabi asked, leaning his face into the palm of his hand. What do I care for some honor-obsessed brat, Shigaraki replied, sneering slightly. Toga sighed dramatically. I hope he does. It'd look so pretty, blood on his face, with his red blood eyes, she cooed. Whether it was his or someone else's didn't really matter much to her. Driven by revenge, carrying out his own justice, certainly not heroic by their standards, Compress said, his eyes carefully watching the hero students. Wonder how long it'll take for them to deem him a villain. Dabi's brow raised. Oh. Like to bet on that. Compress deflated, pouting beneath his mask. I've been low ever since that last spot chased me out before I could grab my winnings. Cheating, can you believe that? Question mark. He whined comically to the flame villain. Next match is Lirio. Hagakure cheerfully said. Old man better not fuck up, Bakugo grumbled. Have some faith in him Bakubro, it'll be his shining moment. Kaminari laughed brightly. The sooner they get done, the more time they'll have for whatever's next in the tower. There might be more prisoners up ahead, Todoroki said. And they're still stuck with Tonpa, Ribbit. Although there's not much the man can do now as long as they vote against him, Suyu croaked. Kurapika was fast, and strong, no doubt from training. He's serious about the phantom troop isn't he, Jiro said dreadfully. He's let his darkness consume him, unfortunately, Tokiyami added in agreement. Gon and Lirio have realized. I know they won't walk away. If not now, whenever the time comes they'll help him, Midoriya said firmly. The two of them hadn't stepped down to Hisoka during Swindler's Swamp, and despite Lirio's brashness and Gon's obliviousness, they were honest and true. You always know exactly what to say, Midoriya, Kirishima said, flashing him a bright smile. The green-haired boy turned bright red, as the class erupted in laughter, as he stuttered trying to thank the redhead. The screen blinked to life again, and they settled, wondering how the next battle would play out. Unfortunately, this part is over. I hope you enjoyed it. My apologies for all those quotes. Please have a good morning, afternoon, evening or night. See you next time, faves.